Guys, welcome back to the Chaotic Little Book Corner. So my plan was to do a video a day for each book in the Welcome Book Prize group. And as much as I would love to do that, I have not been able to make the time to make that happen. And I have now read all 6, and I feel really confident about all of them, and I have a lot of thoughts on some, and then really minimal thoughts on others. So I'm actually just going to do a 6 review of 6 books. So go grab a cup of coffee, grab a cup of tea, get a cozy blanket, come back, join me, and we are going to do a review of the Wellcome Book Prize shortlist nominees. And I will wait. Welcome back. Okay. So the first book I want to talk about is this, When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalatithi. Oh my Lanta. So, prep for tears. Like, go in knowing that a full box of tissues is going to be necessary and that there is no escaping this because, oh my goodness, this book. If you want to talk about, like, the power of life and the power of acceptance and grief and the 5 stages of grief and the conversation of what happens when a person is faced with their own mortality while still trying to function in a day-to-day way, the conversation of the overall arcing human life, it is brilliant. I think that this book was phenomenal, and I think it might win. I'm not sure, but I think this might be the winner. The thing about this that I really loved more than anything was how powerful and poignant it was, and how it just seriously shoved you, like, right in the gut. It just punched you in the gut, and it made you really think about your own mortality, your own existence, your own life, your choices in life, what you think is good, what you think is valuable, what you think you're using your lifetime on, and it was so powerful. And I think that for me, there was so much more to this book than I got on the first read, and so much more power and drive to the fact that this is literally a man facing his own mortality. This is a man who is... Okay, hold on. At age 36, he has trained to become a neurosurgeon, and he's diagnosed with lung cancer. I can't. I just... Okay, lots of feels. So the thing for me that was so incredible about this book, besides everything, was that this is such a shock to your system. When you're thinking about the idea of putting your life on hold to become something, to become a neurosurgeon, to become something bigger and something more worthwhile for the world, and then you're shot down before your time. I mean, I really recommend this book to basically anyone. I think it's really brilliant. I think it's really interesting. I think it's really profound. And I think that anyone who is curious about grief and life and how to kind of come to terms with one's own mortality, this is a really profound and wonderful book. And then we have this. This is Milas de Kernel's Mend the Living. And I think here in the US it goes under The Heart. And bless you! Here in the US it goes under The Heart as the title. This book is a book that takes place over 24 hours. It is the story of a young man named Simon. And he has a condition that affects his heart, and in a matter of a day his entire life changes, and he is now a vegetable. And so you hear from his father, his doctor, and the person on the other end waiting for an organ transplant. And you get to hear from all these different people who are kind of coming to terms with the fact that as one man's life ends, another person's life can begin. and what that looks like and how that can affect a family and how that can affect a doctor and how that can affect somebody's life so profoundly and wonderfully. I'm going to use the word profound a lot because there was a lot of profound work in this collection this year. I really think that the thing for me that was so bold in this story was the idea that there was no apology for the fact that you're following someone's death and there is hope in their death versus just this despair to their death. Like there's a purpose to their death. But that sounds really dark and cold, but at the same time, it's really important to understand that in this case, someone benefits from the death of another person. And sometimes that happens, and that's really scary and really sad and really strange to say, but it is known to happen when people are waiting on the organ transplant list. Ugh. It just, oh. So then, I Contain Multitudes, The Microbes Within and the Grander View of Life by Ed Young. Bacteria is awesome. I can't explain to you how much I did not appreciate bacteria and how much I did not appreciate every little organism that potentially exists on this earth. And I look at dust completely differently, and I look at just the general existence of everything with more awe. There is this overwhelming fascination that I have now with the idea of just how everything is made up of multitudes of little tiny organisms. And I think I knew that from like high school science, but it didn't really sink in the way that this book did. And that's kind of sad to me because I feel like so many more people would be so much more interested in science if they could read a book like this and kind of understand just how intensely connected and so intensely affected we all are by things like bacteria and microbes and little tiny organisms. It was really fascinating and it was really wonderful. It was a little bland for me in some parts. Like it definitely got a little too sciencey sometimes. Overall, it's a beautiful book. I mean, the end papers are stunning. I think that for me, it was a great read. It was a good read. It was a solid read. There was a book that's very similar to this that I liked a little more, though. So it was tough, but it was a good book. Then there's this. This is The Titan Zone by Sarah Moss. I love this book. I think it's great. I think it's a really fabulous depiction of family. What's the word I'm looking for? Relationships? Family dynamics, what it's like to be the full-time at-home parent, what it's like to be the mother or the father of a child who is sick, what it's like to be the sibling of someone who is sick, what it's like to be the person who is sick. I think that this is a really interesting story, and it really struck me, and it really struck me for the second time that I read it once already last year, and I really enjoyed it, and then I read it again a second time, and I really enjoyed it. So I think it's a great book, it's a good book, it's a solid book, and I really like it. I liked Sarah Moss's book last year, Signs for Our Lost Children, better, and that was also nominated for the Wellcome Book Prize. I think this one falls a little short for me because there are some characters in it I'm really not a fan of, and I found very difficult to get along with and feel sympathy for. This one I feel sort of unjustified in speaking about, or should I say I don't feel as if I'm the right person to talk about this. This is How to Survive a Plague, the story of how activists and scientists tamed AIDS, by David France. And while it's brilliant and it's wonderful and it really profoundly steps forward and talks about such a hard subject, I really struggled, and it struck me so hard that this affected so many people, so many lives, and still does, and affects groups of cultures and communities and worlds and generations, and it's all affected by this illness that we can't seem to beat. And it's tamer now than it was, but it's still not 100% tame. And there's so many situations where I wish that this kind of conversation, or this book, the conversation that's had in this book, which is talking about the science of it and the history of it, would be had with more children, not young, but like teenage years when sex starts to become a conversation. Because I think that there is some elements to the AIDS epidemic that they don't understand, and that the use of protection during sex is such an important thing that can help save people's lives. And yet in Africa, it's not even about that. It's like I said, I don't really feel like I have the credentials to talk about this. And as much as it taught me, it left me with more questions than answers. And I feel like this is a really wonderful book. And this is the other one I think might win. If the other one, When Air Becomes Breath does not. But for me, this is a really hard book to talk about. And I don't know how to come forward with it without sounding ignorant. So if anyone wants to comment down below and offer me some articles to read or education that I can find on like the history, I would be very grateful. I may not dive right into it immediately because this really shook me so much, but I do want to get more information and I do want to learn more. And the last book is The Gene, and this is by Siddhartha Mukherjee. Sorry, I'm a little emotional about the last book. This is by Siddhartha Mukherjee, and I really enjoyed this book. It was really fascinating. It gave me it gave me such a fascination and appreciation for the smaller things in life, like literally the smallest things in life. So the idea that there is something inside of us that is basically decided before we're even born, such as potentially the gene that makes you a little more susceptible to some cancers, the gene that makes you more susceptible to mental illness, the gene that decides whether you have green eyes or blue. Like, that kind of stuff was so interesting to read and really dive into and break down and kind of become more immersed in. And then also the conversation that they had in this book, which is talking about the history of Nazis and what they did and how they used gene research to control and to try and demonstrate power, is so fascinating. And the idea that something so immoral could be so beneficial to science really struck with me. Really stuck with me. So yeah, those are my 6 books from the Wellcome Book Prize. My predictions for the winners. I really enjoyed what I did. I hope to work with the Wellcome Book Prize again and in the future as much as possible. I think that they are a wonderful prize and a wonderful group and a wonderful community. I think that honestly, the Wellcome Book Prize in general is my favorite book prize, which I don't know how many other people say that, but I think it's my favorite because I really think it has the most education to me. But yes, I am going to say goodbye to you, and thank you again to the Wellcome Book Prize. I appreciate everything you've done, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.